TitanicClock.com, your source for previously unobtainable RMS Titanic collectibles.
If you're curious, we are shooting this at Havencrest Castle, which is my home. So that's the background you see here. I'm in the conservatory. I shoot all my videos in the conservatory because you get the best daylight here. There are 15 etched glass windows, and it's perfect southern exposure for good lighting. I don't have to add extra lighting. Anyway, the large clock is the easiest of all, really, because it's a very big clock. You just grab it by the gold bezel, kind of wiggle it out, pull it out. And now on the back, you see it has this prong device. You have to remove that to get to where you put the battery in. You'll see there's a prong here. I don't know if you can see, I hope you can. But what it is there are two opposite each other that are bent at a 90-degree angle. These are just straight up. But these two 90-degree angle ones go into these slots. There's a slot here and directly opposite, another slot here. So those just engage there, and that's what holds it to the back. So you take that off, put your battery in here, AA battery. That'll start the clock running. As you can see, got it upside down. And to set the clock, you just turn this giant wheel here. It's a big wheel, very easy to turn. That sets the clock, that will allow you to set the clock to whatever time you want. Just once again, reverse. Those two 90-degree prongs bent 90 degrees, just secure this to the back like that. Pop it back in, like so. And you've got your large clock ready to go. Both the small and the medium, which I have on the table here, use the same size clock, and so the instructions apply to both. Now, if you happen to have sculpting tools like this, wood or plastic, it's the best for prying this clock out. The clock fits very tightly. That's because resins shrink, so even though the housing space was exactly the right size, it shrinks a little, so it makes a tight fit. So you do have to pry it out. Probably don't have sculpting tools, but you probably do have a butter knife. With all due respect to my late wife, Adrienne Blue Wakefield St. George, who wrote a book on etiquette and was cringing when I called this a butter knife, and all of you out there who are more sophisticated than I am, this is a butter knife. I was told this many times. And this is a place knife. Place knife, butter knife, I stand corrected. So you just insert your butter knife under the gold bezel of the clock, and you just have to get under there like this and pry it. The reason I mentioned these sculpting tools is because they're less likely to scratch the paint to finish than metal, but obviously if you do it carefully, it's not a problem. And on the back of the clock, you'll see on this model for the medium and the small clock, there's a little plastic fork they put in right here. Now, this little needle nose pair of pliers is ideal for grabbing a hold of that and pulling it out. Do you see? Can you see it? And the point of that is it's a little spacer that keeps the it keeps the stem elevated so that the clock won't run. So if I push it in, see the clock starts running. And it's to conserve the battery, so that's why they're shipped that way. It could be sitting, for months, and you wouldn't want the battery worn out by the time it arrived. And to set it, then you just pry out the crown. I hope you can see this okay. You pry out the crown, and then just by turning this, you can set the time. I put on the instructions some of the important times of the, in Titanic history, because some collectors like to set it for when it struck the iceberg, or in this case, we'll set it for, I often set it for 2:20, the time of the sinking. And then you can just push this. If you weren't setting it specifically to 2:20, you would push this in, and if you set it to the time of your location, whatever time it is in your time zone. But in this case, by keeping this out, it will maintain that time. In which case, you probably want to take that little plastic fork and put it back in again, so that when you pop the clock in place, it won't start running. And now you just insert it once again, get it lined up so that, obviously, so midnight's at the top, and as square as you can with the little word quartz kind of helps you line it up. Now, when you put it in, you really have to go straight down because it is a tight fit. So you want to push it in straight down, straight as you can, like that, see? There is a plastic protective cover. It's just a piece of vinyl that is like a decal. And I basically have almost no fingernails, so it's, but this is how you just peel it off, see? You can leave it on if you want to protect the acrylic face of the clock, but you protect it from scratches, but I think it looks better without it. And it's really just for shipping.
If you pry your clock out and then you see this black plastic disc in the cavity where the clock was, do not panic. It's not really a big deal. It's just the back of the clock, and it comes off sometimes. And frankly, you can throw it away. But if you want to keep it, you can pop it back on again. Just line up that notch you see there with the stem of the crown and snap it back on. Just give it a squeeze. It'll click back on, and you're good as new.